Would you please stand? Salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You, welcome to the meeting. Thing on the agenda are the minutes of January 30th and February 8th.
Yeah.
Justin. No.
Yeah, Justin did those two. Yeah. So. I make a motion, we approve the minutes of January 30th and February 8th as written.
Second. There's a motion by Chris, a second by Kent to approve the minutes of January 30 and February 8th. All those in favor? Thank you. Next are department reports and you're the man.
I'm up.
There's Justin.
You look way too relaxed.
Yeah, Justin, I think you're a little casual there.
Yeah.
I know
You might be
hotel.
on vacation or something.
Yes, a little bit.
Look like you're in a hotel.
Yes,
Thank you for zooming in from
absolutely.
away.
Good evening.
All right, so just invite them to go real quick, tonight's meeting, we're juggling shifts around this weekend, maintain coverage for complaints all while providing traffic and crowd control. We are having a fishing derby this Saturday, running from 8 o'clock till 2 o'clock Saturday. They're expecting several hundred people there for that, so Main Street will be bombarded. Plus the roads will be all plowed in snow and everything, so we'll be fighting that, parking issues on Saturday. E911, the PSAP issue that has come to light, I had made a recommendation to our town manager that we seek services of Androscoggin County Communications as our PSAP provider starting July 1st of 2003. As you can see, the cost that comes with that, presently we're paying $263 per person per population community. And the way I understand it is with Androscoggin, it's going to jump up to $450 per person. So based on the population of Monmouth at 4101, based on 21 figures, our yearly rate will be around $18,455, which is an increase of roughly $7,669 per year for just the 911 services. I provided Justin with all those figures. And I'd like to just do a shout out to Chief Ryan Frost, who went there for doing all the legwork and all the calling to all the different agencies to figure out what's going on. As you know, Somerset is not renewing any Kennebec County community contract for 23-24 starting July 1st, which threw Kennebec County into a whirlwind as far as finding SAP services. The state, to let it just fall on the state of Maine has no ability to handle that influx of calls right now. They don't have the personnel. They haven't been able to hire personnel. They're still like 14 positions down at their dispatch center. So they pretty much flat out that we can't handle it. Find services elsewhere for now. And Androscoggin is the only one that would be able to handle us. All the communities that Woodbrook dispatches for right now will all be going to Androscoggin starting July 1st, provided you guys sign the contract when and the town manager signs the contract and it comes in. That's where that stands right now. Till something else is done in the future, that's where we're gonna be.
Chief, what are our options? I mean, what are other communities doing? You said all the Winthrop dispatch communities are going to.
Northern
Androscoggin.
Maine communities. Still searching for a piece of effort.
What's Somerset going to be charging itself per person? Do you know?
I know that, they said that if they were able to find the personnel to handle these costs, their rate would jump up to about $550 per person for us. And, that is what the state has said as well, is they would have to get $550 or above in order to, take us on to hire new personnel.
So how many communities does Winthrop serve, and how many are we sort of going with?
We're tied in, I believe that including Winthrop, there are 8 other communities.
So we're not, it's not just us and Winthrop, and we're
No.
dangling in the wind.
No.
Um,
And those are the 8 communities that will be going to, the Androscoggin. That doesn't include all the other communities out there that are searching.
right.
Some of the, I believe some of the communities out in, western part of the county are going to Lincoln County Communications, or are serviced by Lincoln County right now, so they don't have an issue right now.
And is their cost, what's their cost?
They're not taking anybody else on.
No, but would,
I
just
don't-
to get an
I honestly don't know-
idea of
I
what
just don't know what Lincoln charges these communities.
the 71% increase.
Yes, it is.
Did a little math.
Almost 72.
Yeah.
On the 16th, I met with Art True. Art True is the director of Kennebec County Emergency Management. And, I had set up a meeting for couple of our state senators and legislators to come talk on this issue. And it went out to all the affected communities, and Art True was the only one that actually showed up to meeting, like myself. We had a long discussion about the county and opening up the county opening up a dispatch center and what the concerns were. As of right now, he's polled all the communities that need dispatch services. I think there are I think he said around 40 agencies in the county that require some sort of dispatch service. And he's got a commitment from 50% of them that they would support the dispatch center in Kennebec County. My concern was, there's no way they can start up a dispatch center before July 1st when the need is, need is gonna hit us. And the cost that it would present to taxpayers to start a new center up. And he said, based on the figures that he's come up with, that it would be tax neutral. If everybody contributed the same amount that they're paying right now for dispatch services, that there would be no increase in the need for new taxes to fund this.
Who is this you're talking to?
Art True, he's the director of Kennebec County Emergency Management. He's the one that the commissioner is told to go out, start asking and researching.
Is this contract that we're contemplating with Androscoggin County a 1-year contract?
That's what I would recommend. I don't, they may come back with a 3-year, I don't know, but that's a conversation I would have with Justin because they will reach out to him for the contract, to sign the contract, I should say, but my advice would be go with a 1-year contract, so we're not bound for 3 years.
Is there a way that we could talk to our colleagues in Winthrop, et cetera, to
Yeah, I
see that
think-
we're all on the same page with that?
I think Ryan is on that same page, Chief Frost is on that same page.
And that would be give enough lead time to the county officials to put together a plan that might make economic sense, because as soon as we get into different cycles, then their economics would fall apart.
Yes. And if I, if I was running Androscoggin, I would say a 3-year contract, because I don't wanna go out and sign up new people to come in and work and only have 1-year contracts supporting them, you know? I understand where they're coming from, but they've got to understand where we're coming from too. Be nice to have all our dispatch agencies in the same location. So we're not dealing with this issue every 4 or 5 years, because that's the way it's been happening. Every 4 or 5 years, we've been dealing with this PSAP issue, and it hasn't been solved yet. We need to start pushing things along so we can get this solved. Last week, Olivia Mora went to lead training, and that's training to 3-day course. It's to offset handle crisis situations, de-escalation, that sort of thing. She's got the knowledge now to come back and train all of us up in that same field, so well worth the money to send into that. Also, I'm in the process of applying for a state of Maine grant to cover extra patrols for the 2 weeks of the Click It or Ticket campaign. That's 100% funded by the state and the federal government, to include administration fees for servicing the contract. Covered the guy, not only the hourly wage of the guys, but it also covers their benefit, their retirement, the health insurance, everything. So there's absolutely no bad costing. And we're only, it's a 2-week program. We're only looking to set it up for 8 to 12 hours. So you're talking about $3,000 contract in the States. I just wanted to keep you guys praised of that. That runs from, it's the last week in May 1st. June. And that's all I have for tonight. Unless there are any other questions.
Do they ever do grants for like distracted driving campaigns?
They run different campaigns, OUI, distracted driving, seatbelt, yes,
They do one for, distracted driving, people texting. It's crazy.
it's very evident.
It's crazy. What you see when you're walking and people are driving by and not looking at the road.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Very well.
Ready for snow?
Olivia's on vacation this week, and I'm covering day shift Thursday and Friday, and I said I didn't plan that well with the weatherman.
She going someplace warm?
I think they went to the ice caves in New Hampshire.
Great place.
This time of year. Mr. Shaw.
Yeah, I just keep you abreast of what's going on. I did finally get caught up with all the files of the last 2 years, so everything is actually put to bed and put away where it needs to be. Ernie still has about 25 or 30 to do, but he doesn't work as long as I do, so it takes him longer to catch up, but he will catch up. I did start today the backlog on the planning board issues and files and minutes and decisions and all that stuff that's not where it's supposed to be. So the planning board book hasn't been touched in 2 years, because the last one is the one I put in last, so all that has to be brought up to date, so we have some continuity going forwards, because I have no history going backwards at this point. So I'll be working on that. And I have Justin and Lori have been working on getting a replacement, and things are looking good in that respect, and there's still time. If all things work through for me to sit side by side and get this guy working the way he should. You know, he can watch me for 3, 4, 5 weeks, it'll be perfect. That's all I have, unless you have any questions.
So the new guy is. He'll be starting, you think?
I think Justin can probably tell you more of what's going on. I'm assuming that Wednesday of next week is a good time. I think they sort of left it up to us to work, the two of us to work out to see what works. But I know the signatures haven't been placed yet on the documents to officially, so we're working within those parameters, trying to get started. I'm going away, so I won't be back until Tuesday night. So Wednesday morning seems like a good time if everything works. Then we'll put things, we'll start putting things in right away.
Did we discover the ingredients of the piles in the farm fields down off Robertson
Yes,
Road and South
it
Monmouth
is.
Road?
Totally neutral. It's ash from a plant that does creates ash from pellets. I got the cut sheet on it. There's no PFAS in it. It's totally for organic farming. It's got all the active ingredients that an organic farmer needs to cultivate with. To add to burnt soil to reactivate it. So it's a good product. It just looks ugly. You know, it looks like it's bad stuff, but it's not. And there's no very little phosphorus. I mean, 0.00007% or something phosphorus. So it can even be used close to water bodies. Okay.
Thanks for looking into that. And thank you for agreeing to be our training consultant.
Yes, no problem.
I guess that's it.
Justin,
Justin.
Are you still on department head?
Yes, we are.
I'm sorry. I tried to get into the Zoom. Couldn't make it. Yeah. Okay,
Sure.
for the podium?
Yes, you were to go.
You don't mind?
Sure, yeah.
Thanks. I've been working really hard to rebuild the program offerings at the library, you know, with COVID and then other things happening. You know, it's been a long slog, but things are happening. So in addition to weekly make and takes, which kids come in and do some art and then they get to take it home, and some in-house creative activities, we're back to doing a weekly story time and monthly visits with the lovely therapy dog. So if anybody needs some puppy love, come down, start right. Recently, with the help of the Friends of the Library, we worked with Monmouth Community Players to hold a preview of their children's play, Pirate Path News, which is a book that's in a series that's very popular in the library. And we were very happy to say the event was standing room only. And we hope to do more with them in the future. This coming Monday night, if anybody's interested in local history, we're working with the Monmouth Museum, another community partnership event, a live and Zoom hybrid presentation by local historian Dale Potter Clark, who's from Reedfield. And she's written a new historical fiction book, Escape from Bunker Hill, which involves the Underground Railroad. The following Wednesday, March 1st, we're going to welcome back a monthly gathering of new and experienced fiber artists in the local. We had been doing that before COVID, but you know, that kind of, well, anyway, we're glad they're back. It's gonna be fun. We're also participating in the brand new NPR All Books Considered Book Club, which is being hosted by a longtime and very well-known Maine journalist, Bill Nimitz. And we've got 2 copies of the book, which is Milltown, nonfiction book about what's happened in Maine with Milltown. In April, we'll be working with the Winthrop Monmouth Community Ed to host its Babysitting 101 certification program. And we're also hoping that event will lead to other partnerships with them. They don't have a lot of space, I guess, for large gatherings, so we're happy to provide that. And once spring finally arrives, we're planning to again offer free seasonal passes for our patrons for the Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens, the Maine Wildlife Park, and the Booth Bay Railway Museum. Did last year. And the Friends of the Library, again, very generously covered those costs, and they were very, very popular, especially the main botanical garden. Pretty expensive outlay. The library had to do a little bit of, managing those. But it was all done on computer and it was pretty seamless. I'm also trying to develop what other libraries are doing, calling it a library of things. So in addition to books and all the rest, they offer, some libraries offer cake pans, snowshoes. So far, I've got a pole pruner, which helps with those brown tail mothman, a shoe stretcher, which could be used as a weapon, it weighs about 20 pounds, and a battery charger. But we're looking into other items that would be popular in the community, things that people don't want to necessarily own, but we could loan out just like we do with books. And for some reason tonight, snowshoes are coming to mind. We're looking at them. But just wanted to let you know what was happening down there and invite you all to stop by, have a chat, have a cup of coffee, play some checkers. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
Justin, do you have anything?
I don't have anything in particular, other than if you have any questions you want to ask me, I'm happy to try to answer them at this point.
Are you able to divulge any more information on the new code enforcement officer?
So where I left that late last week, and I haven't necessarily talked about it yesterday, was Lori and I outlined sort of a list of what we were kind of willing to offer and what we were hoping he'd be willing to do. And I haven't had that conversation with Lori about what came of that conversation, whether it was on Thursday or yesterday. So I'm not sure at this point where we are. Hopefully.
He did accept, Justin.
Okay, good. Thank you, Dave. I'm sorry. I haven't talked to Lori other than to talk about snow this week. So.
Oh, he accepted.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. So I hadn't heard that yet.
Sounds promising.
We have a new scribe.
We do have a new scribe. I did the last couple of minutes because she wasn't fully on board when those were done. I'm hopeful that for your next meeting, she'll get us caught up and then she can start to take over from that point forward.
Thank you.
How are we doing on tax acquired properties? Getting them back on the tax rolls?
Yep. So we've had 3 individuals of the, well, you authorized 5 and 1 I didn't put before you because she had already promised to come in basically on the Monday before your meeting. So before your packet was ready, I gave her the opportunity. So we've had 3 out of the 6, which we thought we were good to go, have paid. Pending that one of them, the check clears, right? Because that takes us a little time to find out, but they did pay. I have no doubt that it will clear. It didn't appear to be a situation that was the issue. We've gone through a couple more, but a few more of those that we were able to get through since your last meeting to look through the files and everything. They just weren't ready for prime time, or either missing something, or we haven't fully located all of either the card or we not sure whether we notified everybody properly. So that's why I didn't have any more to bring to you tonight, but we're working through them the best we can, but it is very time consuming to dig through all those files for that stuff.
Justin, do you know off the top of your head, which ones are off the list? Which ones have
Yep,
come in?
so
and paid?
Route 126 came in and paid last week. The individual that owns the property on Kotler Road has come in. He talked to me about it. He wasn't sure how he could approach paying for that. We had a conversation about, the fact that he didn't have a mortgage on his property and that, he should probably, if he doesn't have it, that he should go talk to a bank. He said he was going to do that. I haven't heard from him since, but it hasn't been that long either. It takes a little time to do that. So I'm not trying to say anything about that other than just giving you the information. And the other one was, what was the other one? 126.
Mount School.
Monmouth School, he has been in touch with me. He came in, spoke to the people out front. I wasn't there at the time. I called him back a few times, but his phone doesn't have voicemail and he doesn't always answer. He sent me an email when I was down here. Well, he sent me an email on Sunday and I responded to that Sunday to tell him the basics. And I told him I was on vacation this week, but I will call him when I return next Monday. So
Nothing from the Ridge Road properties.
nothing from Ridge Road thus far. That's the one that's outstanding. I haven't heard from the taxpayer or they haven't paid. So two have contacted me and have indicated some willingness to try to work with us. The other ones have paid, except Ridge Road, I haven't heard from at all.
Thank you.
The Wilson Pond Road is off the hook.
What's the status on the Wilson Pond Road?
Wilson Pond Road, there is nobody to come forward and pay. They're deceased. So I expect that one will be on the actual bid list when we finally get a chunk of these together enough to warrant advertising for that.
Bids out a ways.
Not necessarily. The board and I kind of discussed at the last meeting that we thought it might be a good idea, instead of going out to bid, every other week on one property, that we try to get enough of them in front of them and then enough of them to know which ones weren't going to pay, so that we might only bid out, we might bid 4 or 5 that we don't expect to pay, and we could do those kind of all at once. So I'm not sure the time frame on that. We just didn't think it was a good look to constantly be advertising for properties, every other week or every month in the newspaper. We thought we'd put them kind of all together in one opportunity for the public to bid on the ones that were ultimately going to be available.
Thank you.
And Justin, when should we be expecting the next tier, the next batch?
We look at them every week that we have a chance. I know it's one of your priorities, so I try to get through them. I can't really speak to that because, like I said, the ones we looked at last week and the week before just were not ready to be brought before you. We either don't have the cards or we haven't located it yet. So Dolores, our part-time office clerk out front, she's helping us with a lot of the really old stuff. There's a lot of kind of piles of lien notices that weren't filed. So she's going through those too. So I really can't say when we'll have a bunch that's ready for you to deal with, but we are working through them as fast as we can.
And what's the status on the audit process?
The audit, I spoke to Mark. Mark and I talked last Thursday about whether I had heard anything from the auditor, and I had not. I emailed him on Thursday about our status, and he said that he had time that day, that he was working on it that day, and that he would get back to me this week. I do not have an email yet from him, but it is on RKO at this point. He says he has everything he needs from us and Mark. So I'm hoping it's any day, but I know I've been saying that for about a month.
I'm hoping that it's any day, and I'm also hoping that that when you get the email from the auditor that says, here it is, we're all done, that the response is, great, next Wednesday is the select board meeting, can you come?
Yeah, sure, I'll do that. And I know that Zach he's our auditor from RKO. He has already had the conversation with Mark about when they can start. His availability starts in sometime in late April to do the next year. So that will not be available for you to make decisions on by the time you have to sign the warrant. But Mark has agreed to try to get that work done timely so that we can get back on track. So when our current year closes on June 30, that one will be timely for you to have by probably December. So that's kind of the time frame we're looking at.
Well, and I think I think if we've got at least 1 year to look at, we can sort of extrapolate the financial direction of the town from, the history through that additional year to sort of understand exactly how, how we're doing in terms of our financial position.
I think that's fair, considering that the year that I kind of started here, there wasn't really any new projects last year that are kind of half in the works, so to say. There were a few that were finishing up. I think we can get pretty good idea from Mark looking at that about, where those projects stand and whether there are any overages or anything like that. So I think that's a fair statement for you to say, Kent, that you will have some education, or at least you'll be in some position to make some assumptions at that point.
Anything else for? Select board reports or next, or?
I got two things.
You do, okay.
We're having a public meeting tomorrow night. I know it's snowing. I know it's going to be miserable, and normally I'd say let's postpone the public meeting, but this is the one about the North Monmouth water issue. And some 200 families, 200 people have been notified that this meeting is happening for their benefit. So Joel Bolano-Stott and I will be here, and Dan is going to come in and dig us out so we can get to the building. We'll be here, and everyone else, I'm presuming, will probably be on Zoom. And we're going to move forward with that. Justin, if I send you a Zoom link, can we get that posted to the town website? I know the Winthrop Water Utilities folks were giving out a Zoom link, but I'm not sure that we actually had it posted on the Monmouth Town website.
Sure, I can put anything on there if you send it to me. So we put the final report on there as your suggestion. It could be in my inbox, Kent. So if it is, but if you can send it to me, that would be great. I can get that posted tonight, right after the meeting, if you want, or tomorrow. That's perfectly fine with me. I can do that.
I'll do that later tonight. And if you could just put a little blurb on it that says, despite the snow, this meeting is going to happen.
Sure, I can do that. No problem.
Yeah.
I had several inquiries as to the salt in the parking lot at Cumston Hall. Maybe they had experienced some rare ice event there that didn't happen around the rest of the town. But there was an excessive amount of salt, and maybe Dennis can enlighten us a little bit if he gets on at some point. But it was a lot of salt that laid on the ground for days there after the last storm. I didn't really have an answer. I thought maybe our equipment was not calibrated to do spread straight salt, and that may be what caused the. But I had a couple inquiries about it anyway. And I would like to request of the school reuse committee to maybe come in and give us some kind of financial report. Maybe in a couple weeks or the 1st of April or something, just so we kind of know where we're at and where we're headed. And
You can do that.
I assume there's not enough downtime. I'm sure they must be getting quotes on
Well,
stuff.
We finally finalized it last week.
Yep.
It took that long to hear back. So I can give you that. I'll get the most updated one and ask Dawn to come as well. So she and I can
Yep, not necessarily
work
next
together
meeting,
on
but
it. Yeah, whenever.
get a few
Yeah.
weeks, first out of April
Yeah.
or something.
Yes.
And I'm gonna be out of town for the next couple meetings, but I'm gonna try my hand at Zoom, and hopefully I can be here and invoice. That's all I have.
Dennis?
Hi there. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
We
sir.
can. We all want the picture that's behind you.
Oh, yes, it's a perfect Zoom background, I think. There we go. Enjoy it. Hi there. Did you call on me to speak to the salting?
Yeah.
Sure. This happened, I think it was, to me, I took it as a preventative. I don't know, again, maybe the calibration, like you said, Mark, was off. I don't know that. But I did, it was earlier this week when we had a little bit of snow, but it was just a little bit of ice. And I had contacted Dan, and we seemed to think maybe it would end up melting away, but he came over and salted down, and I did notice it seemed like a lot, but I don't, I'm not, like you said, I just was appreciative of the work. So, I did think it was a little bit crunchy, but we certainly, it was preventative some other places. So that's all I know about it. And it was yeah, so a few people asked me too.
Thank you.
There was also a big pile in the parking lot next to the railroad tracks. There was a huge pile there.
Oh, salt.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Must be.
so
Comes out of whack.
on my walk, I noticed a big mound of salt. So,
Thank you. Anything else?
I noticed that we received a response to our bid. This is the proposal by a company called Amoresco. It's a response to our RFP, request for proposal, on a solar array to replace the town's electricity bill. And if you recall, the voters last June approved locating one at the town transfer station. And at that time, we were contemplating partnering with a company and getting 20% off of our electric bill. And when we got down to the brass tacks on that, and could see that our electric bill was going to be going up 40%, we thought, maybe we want to think a little more carefully about what it is that we commit the town to for the long term. And so if you recall, one of the questions that Kristen had asked during this conversation was, what does a solar array cost? What would it cost for us to, for the town to install its own solar array and capture all of the savings of the potential grants that are out there from both the state level as well as the federal level? And so we put this RFP out to find out the answer to that question. And this proposal is actually by a company that reputable company out of Massachusetts that actually proposed the last time around as well. The costs that they are discussing in this proposal are very similar to the costs that the overall costs that we were looking at as part of the partnership proposals that we were exploring late last year. And the story, the financial story, as I see it, is pretty much unchanged. The proposal we have in front of us calls for about a system that would cost about $565,000. About $160,000 of those dollars would be granted to us from the federal government, part of the Inflation Reduction Act. So that would reduce the cost by about 30%. There's another potential for an additional 10% reduction in cost if we use certain types of equipment. This company is proposing that we sort of talk to them a little bit more before they tell us yes or no on the equipment that the federal government's going to allow them to use in order to qualify the town for another 10% reduction in price. Which means that the net outflow here is the net cost to the town is roughly $365,000. And when you finance a $365,000 investment at approximately 6%, which is where interest rates, I think, are right now are for a town the size of Monmouth, and we could ask Justin to investigate that a little bit to get more precise. But a 6% interest rate is kind of where the market is right now. We would be paying about $38,000 a year in principal and interest for about 10 years. Now, the interesting part of that $38,000 expenditure is that that is exactly what, almost precisely what we are paying for electricity. So our electricity costs would go to zero, and we'd be paying the bank instead of paying CMP almost the exact same amount for 10 years. These systems are designed to last at least 20 years. And so we would have a savings of about $38,000 a year, starting in year 11. Right, would be a cash flow positive $38,000 a year thing. Now that's one of the benefits. Of course, the other benefit is that when you pay your electricity costs up front all at once, which is essentially what we would be doing, we lock in our electricity costs. So we become inflation proof on any type of future increases for electric costs. So because we're not buying electricity, we're making electricity and selling it back to the grid. So whatever the cost of electricity is, that's what we would get paid for as a town. And so not a whole lot has changed in our understanding of exactly how this proposal might work. This company also put in here, and you'll see this when you guys have a chance to go through the book, some ginormous solar proposal as a second option, and I don't think I'm interested in discussing that one. We just need enough, right? We need enough to replace the electricity that the town is using currently, plus about 5% or so, because we're expecting a new building to come online and a couple of other things that might increase our electric demand. So, so I would urge you folks to take a look at it. I'm happy, maybe we can, Justin, maybe we could have a conversation about it at our next meeting once folks have had a chance to digest the details. And Justin, if you could get back to us about what the going rate is for a town the size of Monmouth to borrow money. We're not talking about a whole lot of money. We're talking about initially borrowing $566,000 and then immediately paying off whatever the federal government grant is. I think it's like $170,000, something like that. So if you could get us an interest rate so we could get more precise in terms of understanding the financial cash flow situation, that would be helpful. Anything else?
Next is public comment. Public comment. You.
Yeah.
Paul.
I do have a question. Would it be possible, you're looking at these numbers, to have sanitary district participate in that? Because that's one of the issues we're facing, is our electric costs just keep increasing on the pump station. Some way that we can participate and kind of lock in. That certainly would be beneficial to the ratepayers.
Sure, if you could get us we need to just see your electric bill. You could get that to Justin. I mean, the interesting part, I mentioned to this Mark at the beginning of the meeting, is that the cost per watt for solar panels has not changed since 2014. Cost for labor's changed, right? We all know that, but it's still.
Yeah, we have some large pumps down here on the Copsey Road, and they're peak demand and paying like $1,800. I can't remember the kilowatt hour of that, but our monthly bills will break $1,800. Our electric costs for the 3 pump stations are
Okay.
very extreme.
So $1,800 a month-ish.
Yeah, don't quote me on that. I'm not quite sure. We discussed it last night, but I'm not sure if that's they charge us per kilowatt hour or whatever we hit. And it's in the peak, the high part of that's it for the month. But I'll get that to you, and if there's any opportunity to participate in that.
Yep.
In some of that, we'd certainly be interested.
Well, we're not, I don't know, Justin, you can tell me, are we so far down the road in this RFP process that we couldn't go back to the vendor and say, can you increase this by X%, like 5% or 10% or whatever, and ask them to honor their price?
I don't think so on that side. I just typed a question for myself to research on whether that would affect our borrowing if we participate with with another entity. I don't know how that impacts what a bank or what our lenders would do. So that's my question to ask. But as for the vendor itself, I doubt it, because we're still in the contract negotiation phase. So I think we could ask for anything we wanted if they were willing to provide it.
Okay, I mean, we still have to, we still also have to resolve the issue of looking at equipment that would be qualifying the town for the additional 10% grant,
Correct.
right? They specifically left it vague in their response here, because they're not, I don't know if they're not clear, or I don't know if they've got concerns or what, but they said, we don't know for sure, but here's how it works out if we don't get it. So they were fairly,
I just like the opportunity to discuss this further. With
Sure.
the town and see if there's anything that sanitary district. I mean, it is a quasi municipal district.
Right.
If we can do, that's one of our costs that we're facing.
I think that another thing to keep in mind is at one point we had a little bit of discussion about a replacement heating system that would be going in at Cumston Hall potentially in the next few years, replacing, so we are not using oil there anymore. Dennis may know a little more about that, but at one point we had a quote on something to that effect at one of these meetings, and we disregarded it. It wasn't really what we were looking for, but if you're going to replace thousands of gallons of heating oil, that could be a significant amount of electricity.
Dennis, you want to weigh in on that?
Absolutely. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So we are trying to right now figure out a way to update the heating system at Cumston. The RFP that we put out was to replace the condensers. And that was not, we had put into the bid the request to please give alternatives, or at least discuss other sort of energy saving items, but that was not included in that bid. So that's why I recommended that you reject that bid. We're going to redo that, but we are going to ask for things like VRF systems, which is an industrial size strength heat pump system there. And it is something that, electricity is going to be very important, I think, for Cumston Hall and the town.
We definitely don't want to end up paying a bill, a mortgage payment for the bank and paying an electricity bill
Oh, yeah, again.
on top of it.
Right. So Dennis, do you have a time frame for when you're expecting that RFP to be out and to be, hearing back from folks?
Sure. Usually I think it's 90 days that they will go out, and we are looking to do that either at the end of this month, so next week, or the beginning of March, just to try to really just update it and say we want to, sort of update it and move forward with the system rather than just replace what's there. So
So
we'll
will
know
there be
by
some-
the summer.
Will there be something that will be on the warrant that the voters will see?
I do not think that will happen for this year. We already have the ARPA funds that were approved. That's $100,000. And we really don't know what kind of bid we'll get in that time. So I would say that we're probably going to get another year out of these condensers, and that will be all.
What's the time frame on the ARPA funding expenditure? We have to have
There
that
isn't.
money. Well, I think we have to have that money spent by a certain time, don't we?
My understanding is, I believe, I'm talking off the top of my head, I don't have it right in front of me, but I think the town has to commit it by 2025.
Okay.
We've already committed that, I think it was 100,000. I think, like Dennis said, in the last town meeting for this project. So we still have some money there, but that money's already committed. There's already been a public vote. So we don't have to worry about any of that. The only amount that we're concerned about now is what's sort of left that you had previously committed for the water study, which we haven't spent. So like we talked at the last meeting, I think it's about, 75, 80,000 might still be available to you to figure out what you want to use that for in the future, but we don't have to decide that this year for sure.
So there's some possibilities there. Do we have, Chris, do we have a sense of what the new building might be looking like in terms of electrical use or?
We only just got the heating quote the other day, and they're gonna be, heat pumps and, mechanicals, they're obviously the newest version, but we don't have any of that. I mean, it's not like deciding that you're going to put an addition on your house and do it as a private citizen.
Right. Oh, yeah.
This process has just gone on, and even the construction manager, they are sending emails and not getting responses and asking for quotes and not getting responses. So, but things are moving along. We finally nailed it down, but we won't, that will not be ready.
Do we have a sense that it's going to be heat pumps and not something else?
Well, and don't quote me on that. I can't tell you what the mechanicals are because I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
We've had the discussion, but I can't, tell you what exactly it is. They're all going to be up on the second floor. I know that. They're not going to be someplace that are taking up space in the building. That whole second floor is going to be mechanical. So I know how much they're going to cost or what they fully cost approximately, but I can't say it's this.
But they're going to be heat pumps though.
And don't quote me on that. I cannot tell you exactly what they are because I haven't seen the mechanical engineers recommendation of size, any of that. That's all something the architect and the construction manager worked through. So.
Okay. Justin, do you recall?
No, I haven't seen it, Ken, so I don't.
Okay.
I can't say it's this item, so.
Well, maybe we can figure that one out when you guys come to.
Yeah, and I can shoot an email to our construction manager at Nickerson O'Day and ask him that and the architect and they'll be able to give me that information.
So, I mean, I think this is Paul's point is we get one bite at the apple on this. So we should make it count. Right. And then we're locked in for 20 years.
Yeah, we know we don't want to overproduce because you lose that,
Right.
but we don't want to fall short either.
Hugh, did you have some?
Yes, but just take a moment. Let's talk about recreation for a minute. Totally different, what we've been discussing. Dave and I are on the Cotton Trailblazers, Dave's the treasurer, I'm the president, and we maintain 40 miles plus actually now of trails across Monmouth and a little bit of Wayne we've actually taken over. Over the years, the landowner have been very generous, the landowners in Monmouth, a lot of the older folks and names that people like Chris and Mark will remember. You know, Buster Chick and Norm Swan White and folks of that era, they used to own large tracts of land. And very generously allowed us to use those tracts, and we're still using much of those same lands, not all of them. My point here is that the checkerboard is getting more and more checkered. What used to be one or two landowners as you cross an area of geographics in Monmouth is now becoming 3 or 4 or more. That's problems going across the state. And I really wanted to focus not just on snowmobile use, which obviously work, but other uses. I understand that the Conservation Commission is becoming more and more active, and we've actually had a couple of conversations with them. But I just wondered if I could clarify with you folks, what is their mission? I'm sensing that they might be actually very important to the concerns that I have. And I just try to learn a little bit more about them because I think we're maybe become one of their allies and one of their, like Julie says, partner groups. I see us working more closely with folks like that, but I was hoping that since you folks give them their mission and charge and their authority, what is your vision for them and what actually is their job in your eyes? What are they all about? You guys created them. So what is your Frankenstein? I want to know what it is.
Well, I would suggest that you talk not only to the Conservation Commission, but also the Economic Development Committee. Because we've put out there some surveys at last June's election that asked townsfolk what they want the TIF district to be focused on. And the #1 issue there was trails. And not just walking trails, but multiple use.
Multi-use recreational trails.
Absolutely. And so we've been doing a lot of work at on that with the Economic Development Committee. And we've been working closely with the Conservation Commission because they too are interested in seeing if we could work collaboratively. One of the conversations that we had at the last Economic Development Committee meeting was to propose some shifting of funding in our and language in our the TIF district that currently exists in Monmouth. So it's regarding the CMP substation. It's about 10 years into a 20-year TIF, which could be extended to 30 years if we ask the state nicely. And that would set aside some annual funding for our recommendation would be for maintenance, growth, and general infrastructure on trail systems. And the more people we can build a trail for, the better, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree with that.
So so the Conservation Commission, so, one of our members, Andy Smith, is on both the Economic Development Committee and the Conservation Commission. So we're sort of linked there. We're going to be, I think tonight, Justin, are we talking about the TIF tonight? The TIF budget tonight?
Yes, the TIF budget is in there and so is the facade program.
Okay, so we're gonna be talking about some of our budgeting plans for the TIF stuff tonight. And our meeting next month, the Economic Development Committee meeting next month, is to put together some recommendations to send to select board, about putting changes to our CMP TIF, that, elevate the trail aspect of it and do away with some things that aren't just aren't being used or aren't current. So stay tuned on that.
I think needs to be on the radar more and more. Obviously, you're already talking about it, but from the people that are out there we have the largest trail system in the town. So we're gonna be likely candidates to be spoken with. I've been saying to our group, and I'm not saying I speak for them, but as the current leader, I've been saying for some time, multi-use is where it's going, where it's all about. If we're gonna survive and move into the future, that's what we need to look to. You can't speak for all the landowners if they're gonna allow certain multi-use, but I think many of them will allow more than one use. No one loves them personally. When you're over 100 landowners, 104, 107, where we're at now, that's a lot of different personalities and folks to work with. So very glad to hear about what's going on, and I think that the commission that oversees places like Whittier Woods and all the things that you just mentioned, Ken, are becoming more and more important than many people actually currently realize. Just want to put that out there that
Yeah.
we have a concern, we're watching, and we're looking to maybe work more closely, but we're trying to learn more about the commission and economic development committees and how that's all going to work.
So talk to Andy Smith, talk to Noni Prince. And let them know you want to be helpful, and they will definitely keep you in mind. I think they want to work with you guys too.
Touch with the commission. I haven't really had so much to do with the economic development.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Any other public comment? On to consider appointing Brian Wood as an interim trustee to the Monmouth Sanitary District.
Yes, the Board of Trustees has 5 members. At the last election, and Dan Niles' position remained vacant. Dan declined to run. He had been there for like 40 years of that. There was one write-in candidate at the time. I spoke to the individual. I think he lives over in North Monmouth. He never went to the town office to get sworn in, and he never showed up to any of our meetings. So we've been operating for the last year and a half down one trustee, which sometimes we barely have a quorum for it because one of our members is also a referee for the high school basketball. So the last few months he's been out. But Brian came forward, and he lives down here. It used to be Cool Bay Drive, but I guess now it's Wood or something like that. But I think he would be a good fit. He would fill out Dan Niles' term for 2 years, and then it would be up to him to secure a nomination of that.
I make a motion, we appoint Brian Wood as an interim trustee to the Monmouth Sanitary District.
If I may, he would have been here, but I guess he gets scheduled.
Has he put in an application?
He emailed me and I forwarded that. It should be in here. I saw it in the packet, so it should be. in there. If the board does appoint him, he would have to go into the town office and get sworn. But no, he has not put a formal application in.
Because I think it's a little different than a committee
Yes, it
application,
is.
so it's different than being on a committee.
This is one of those, if I might, this is one of those things like the RSU board where it's usually something you don't have a say in, but when there's an interim vacancy, it falls to you to fill them in for the agency that's requesting the person. So I can certainly ask for applications in this situation if you want. But once you appoint them, they really don't answer to you anymore. They answer to their own entity. So that's kind of the difference with a standing town committee versus the sanitary district or the RSU or something like that. It's a little different.
So should we appoint him subject to his submitting the application?
We didn't require that of Jim Grandall, so I don't know how we, you know,
Based on what
So-
Justin just said, I think.
Yeah.
And if I may follow up on Justin. Sanitary district does follow the municipality with respect to the elections, and that's how we're
Yeah.
elected. But we're quasi municipal. We operate, as you know, our own board, our own budgets, and our own fees and so on like that. So Joe, I don't think an application is a position. We have been looking for a person to fill this, and Brian is the first one I've approached to come forward in about a year and a half to say, yeah, I'm interested in doing it. And if we're gonna delay it further, we'll just delay it, but that's.
I don't have a problem with.
I don't see a reason to delay.
So based on that information, I'll second Chris's. Okay.
So Chris made a motion and Mark seconded it to appoint Brian Wood as an interim trustee to the Monmouth Sanitary District. All those in favor? Thank you.
Thank you. And then I'll let Brian know that he has to come up to the town office and get sworn in, but.
Thank you. Next is to consider posting, authorizing the posting of the roads. I thought that, I thought last year that we had made this kind of an automatic thing that the town manager would take care of.
I didn't see that we had an ordinance. We need an ordinance in order to take it out of your hands, and I didn't see that we had one.
No, we
I
don't.
could be mistaken, but I didn't see one when I was looking through the ones that I'm aware of.
Yep.
So what you can do is you can kind of delegate it on an annual basis. So me as the road commissioner, because I hold that title, if you want to delegate that to me, then I can do it as I see fit, which is obviously how Dan sees fit, basically. So if you want to do that, that's perfectly fine.
I have that, Justin, in my office, the doctrine from last year. I saw it in the cleanup. So there was something written and signed by, I believe the chair signed it. So I thought maybe you had it, but I'll find it and I'll put it on your desk or I'll get it to you.
I think it was just for last year though, Dave. I think it was just for
Oh,
that
okay.
year.
It might have been. I don't know. I just saw something for
Yep.
perpetual posting of roads, though. I thought it said something to that extent.
I thought it was.
Well, I'll look.
So you can table this if you want. It's not a big deal. Dan has posted the dirt roads. Basically what it means is this happens a lot in municipality. Paul can inform you that like, if we don't have the ordinance, if we don't have the proper authorization, he can't summons anybody for doing it. But a lot of towns do it like this without actually going through the formal process. They let the road commissioner do it. It just kind of deters people from doing it. So it just kind of depends on your comfort level with how that's going to go. And maybe Paul can fill in more on that. But as far as I know, this isn't necessarily unusual that they get posted before they're officially sanctioned.
So you want to authorize posting of roads?
Yeah, I make a motion, we authorize the posting of roads. I also make a motion that we instruct the town manager to create an ordinance. If one does not exist.
Very good. Understood. Works for me.
I'll second that.
Oh, Ken has made a motion and Chris has seconded it to authorize the posting of roads and to have the town manager create an ordinance. Doesn't exist, to have this done by the road commissioner, the town manager. All those in favor? Thank you.
Paul, how often do you cite somebody for driving on Posted Road?
Usually it's just stopping the blue lights and stop and just advising them and it goes away.
Okay. That's what I kind of.
And they make sure they haul in the morning when it's down.
We did have a citizen email me today about concerns about the operation of vehicles over the Wagon Bridge that has just recently been posted to 22 tons.
Yeah,
And it's
people are hauling through there.
here's that way.
Huh. Well, that's That could be a surprise.
Yes. 23 tons and there they sit.
I think as a ne'er-do-well teenager, I had a run-in with Chief McGinley at that bridge one time. He got me straight.
No problem since.
No.
So which bridge?
No, it was a real bridge, but it was still one lane and
Yeah.
I didn't stop.
There never was a stop sign there growing up. There never was.
Yeah.
Not until.
Larry told us he got- Yeah, by our friend.
Yes.
In Winthrop. Mhm.
Okay, on to, consider adopting the new facade grant application form.
So you got the memo from Reagan. Kent can probably fill you in if there's anything he wants to add, because it was, these changes were from the Economic Development Committee, which Kent obviously sits on as your representative. But the memo just outlines the changes that are in the form, not anything that wasn't already in there. So I think the memo pretty much includes most of what they were changing in the application and or the program.
These are pretty minor changes, Mr. Chair. This basically says, if someone wanted to ask for reimbursement of materials and do the work themselves, they would have to present receipts. That was something that the original policy wouldn't allow. It says private residences would no longer qualify for facade improvement, which was actually included in the original document. It says that roofs that are visible from a public area are actually considered part of the facade. So that would become eligible,
But only the parts that are visible.
just the parts that are visible.
I read it.
Yeah, very good. It says we don't have to have a special committee to oversee this, that the Economic Development Committee can make recommendations, and ultimately the select board makes the decision. But we would be the screening committee. And then there was a little bit of cleanup. And of course, it's also important to note that for businesses that aren't in the mapped area for the facade improvement, they are still eligible. If you're a business in Monmouth, you're still eligible, even though you're not necessarily in the map that is associated with this particular policy, which has been common practice in the past and not necessarily explicitly stated, but it is now.
I make a motion, we adopt the new facade grant application form.
Second. So the motion by Chris, second by Mark to approve the adoption of the new facade grant application form. All those in favor? There was something here that I didn't know if it was contradictory or not. As far as stressed buildings, like there was a building downtown that we allowed we did do allow him to gave him money to fix it up.
It was a private residence.
And that was a private residence.
It was. Well, that was then, and now this is now.
So this remove blight and appearance of improved appearance of distressed buildings downtown area.
That would, if it
Not
were,
apply to.
it would not apply to residences. Okay, that would apply to
Just
businesses.
And do you know if, is Compton Hall eligible for that? Or it's a town-owned building? Is there some way we can use TIF funding to do maintenance on the facade of that building?
I don't know.
We couldn't,
Let's ask the town manager.
yeah.
Yep. Oh, Dennis is shaking his head. Dennis is like, nah, wish it were true.
Yes.
I'm trying, Dennis. I'm really trying.
Thank you. I've heard, I'm hearing these things. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. Justin, you can do better than I can, I bet.
Yeah, no, Dennis is right. But we did get excited the other day, didn't we, Dennis, when we found out that we were eligible for some of the Efficiency Main credits? Because the library is located in there, and the library is an acceptable municipal building for the municipal program. So that's a good thing for Compton. So Dennis can, when we start working on the HVAC or lighting, any other like general lighting requirements, we can apply for some of those funds, which we will be doing. I'm sure of it.
What about grants, Dennis? Are there a lot of grants out there for buildings like that where it's on the historical registry for facade improvement?
It's there are not many like municipal ones. They're private foundations, but it is a very, you have to be careful because it is a municipally owned building. So there are grants that you could get that aren't like, what I would call state funding, but they would be like private organizations, for example, would be able to do that.
I know that we've discussed facade improvement on that building and
Mhm.
trying to come up with alternative funding rather than
Yeah.
general tax dollars, that's all.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that part of any work on the exterior of Compton would take into consideration the grants and the Friends group and fundraising of that nature. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next is to consider the fiscal year 23 TIF budget.
Okay, so the spreadsheet you have in your packets, I just want to make clear that you understand what you're looking at. The additions column, you'll see it. It shows the additions. It shows the beginning balances. That's what was before the last tax commitment. That additions, that 135, 380, 70, that's the total amount that has been added to the TIF account, but it hasn't been allocated. So Mark has put it in the admin expense line. That's not where it's actually located. He's just trying to represent that it is in that fund somewhere. So that 135 is what you need to decide how you want to allocate it between those approved categories by the town. Does that make sense?
Nope. Where are we, what spreadsheet are we looking at?
Hold
It
on.
was in your
It
packet.
was in the packet, but there isn't and of course it's diagonal. I mean, it's vertical when it needs to be. Landscape, it's horizontal. So anyway, it's not in the big stapled one that we've been working on. No.
No, it's not
Yay.
part of the general budget
Thank you.
appropriation. This,
Gary.
the way this,
Mary's gonna come.
Mary saved the day. Yes, this is the tip one, so.
the way that
guys
the
wanna
TIF
look at that, I
appropriations
can-
work is once the town approves a TIF, the money just flows in at the rate at which you have decided. So when we talked about it, I don't know how many meetings ago about how much of it in that commitment you wanted to go to it, you decided that you were going to put 100% of that, or the total amount, the full 50%, which is what the town has authorized you to put into that account. So that's the full amount that was raised. It's been deposited into the TIF account. It's not general fund money. And now you have to decide, the town meeting authorizes the select board annually in the town meeting to decide how to spend the money that's put into the TIF fund into those specific categories, which are listed before you only. So you can't make up new ones. If you wanted to change those, you'd have to go to the town to get approval. So that 135,000 that's in admin at the bottom, it's not really there. It's just there for accounting purposes so that Mark knows
As a
that
placeholder.
belongs in that fund. You need to allocate that full amount amongst the lines that you feel is appropriate for this budget year. So that 135 needs to be divided up between property rehab, parking facilities, advertising, streetscapes, townwide events, economic plan, and the revolving loan fund. And you can see the amounts that are in the beginning balances, and I can read those off if that's helpful for anybody.
You guys want to take a look? And so coming back to the conversation we just had with Hugh about revising these categories for the TIF and including a trail system type category. I'm assuming we would have to have the voters vote on it. And once we pass that step, then we have to go to the state to get them to bless the plan, the revision. Would you say that that would have a potential impact on how we make this decision in terms of allocating the funding amount is $135,000 that needs to be allocated one way or another?
Not this year, because when this
Can't do it
money
this
was
year.
raised, these categories were in effect. So so for now, you have to put it somewhere within these categories. When we recommit
Right.
again for the fiscal year 2024 budget, if we have a new TIF plan by then we could allocate it to that new category that you're alluding to. But right now, it doesn't exist.
All right, so we have to wait for that to come through the pipeline before we can actually use it as a framework for making a
That is
decision like
correct.
that. Okay, gotcha.
Justin, looking back from previous years, any record of percentages that went into which account previous years?
Yeah, if you give me just a second, I can bring that right up for you. Just give me just a minute here. Let's see.
And also, Justin, I have when you're done answering that question, I got another.
Yeah, go right ahead, and I'll try to do both at the same time. If I can, I'll tell you it's too complicated and you got to hold on a minute.
So the next question is, are there has the town already committed itself to some ongoing expenses in any of these categories? For example, I know we have some debt service for the sidewalks. Does that come out of this account? And if it does, which category do we need to budget for and make sure that we're paying the bill for the sidewalks?
So the beginning balances are the funds that are sitting in there right now that have not been spent. So for example, the
Okay.
streetscape account is where the sidewalk debt is coming out of that you talked about. So if you look at the transfers in, those are in is really out. That's why it's in brackets. So the 41,000 is the debt payment for this year. So there's currently a balance
Okay.
of 159,000. So
So we're fine. Right.
yeah, so the reason why the TIF budget kind of comes to you later than the town budget is because we don't know what the TIF budget is until you set the town budget, because the mill rate sets the amount that goes into the TIF. So at some point later in the year, we come back to you and we say, okay, this is how much money we have in here. Now, what do you want to do? So as long as we don't overspend any of the balances that are in the TIF, I don't necessarily need your permission to pay bills out of other than what's on the warrant. I mean, all of these bills go on your warrant, so you see them. But the fact that they're being charged to the TIF, even though there isn't a budget for that year, only matters if that particular account doesn't have enough money in it to make that payment. I hope that's not.
So, I understand. We want to make sure that we don't draw any particular category down to zero or beyond zero, is what you're saying,
And
Correct.
right? Because that's when we would get into trouble. If it's a positive balance, then we've got some flexibility. But if we've overspent one particular category, then we've got some statutory non-compliance.
Correct.
And the Main Street sidewalk project. We were slated to do both sides of the street, and that's in the engineering process, correct? And so
Correct. And we're waiting.
likely, more money will be coming out of that streetscapes, for sure.
Yes, correct. So, and to answer, that's a good point, Chris. So, and then to go back to Mark's question, in fiscal year 22, the budget was allocated as follows. The advertising and marketing had $20,000 put into it. Streetscape had $40,000 put into it. Townwide events had $10,000 put into it. And the economic plan had $50,000 put into it.
Okay,
And out of all those, the only one that had any serious transfers was the 41,000 for the debt service on the sidewalks, and 3,000 came out of townwide events, which I'm sure is Apple Fest, basically.
Yeah.
Justin, help me understand what our options might be down the road when we do get to this place where trails could be part of these categories of the TIF. Is it possible for us to, I mean, I realize that part of every budget, we can change the allocation, make a recommendation to the voters to change the allocation for that particular fiscal year. What is, what about these balances that are currently accumulated and sort of sitting there? Can we move with the voters' approval? Can we move those balances from one category to another?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so we can do a do-over if we don't get it exactly right.
Absolutely. And one of the ones which I think Reagan Kent either is or has talked to you about is the fact that the way that the TIF is set up is that it talks about annual appropriations instead of caps. And it would be a lot simpler to administer this program if they were done in a cap basis. So it would say that, you know, for streetscapes over the course of the 30-year TIF district, we can't spend more than $1 million on sidewalks. Or it would say over the course of 30 years, we are going to spend $40,000 on trails. When it limits it by year, it forces us to kind of track each year back. So if you want to make a big deposit one year, for example, when we do Main Street, there's 200,000 sitting in there, which is nice. And probably at some point we'll come to you and say, instead of borrowing that 200,000, why don't we just wipe that down to zero and lower the debt service payment going forward out of the TIF, which would make more room for you to do other things. But by having that sort of annual cap, it really restricts what you're able to do, because it's not going to let you replenish it faster. Or like right now, you couldn't just say, I don't know what the exact number is on the streetscape per year, but if the limit's 50 and you know that in 3 years we're going to do all of Main Street, right now you could put 120,000 a year into that streetscape account, so that when the project came, we might be able to put a $600,000 down payment on it instead of the 300 that would have restricted you as a board and doing whatever you thought was right. I'm not trying to plant ideas in your head. I'm just trying to give you an example that's, you know, coming up soon.
But it's a good example, because I was thinking that same thing. If we, you know, took part of this and put in that streetscapes to be able to use.
Have we borrowed any money toward the Main Street
No,
sidewalk project?
no, not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
We have very little expenses so far. It's basically just Pine Tree Engineering helping us with the applications to become a partnership agreement with MDOT. So it's very minor, several $1,000s. That's about it, to have them do that work.
Take a look at that
The
one.
only thing I see on there that I would recommend you know, the fund that the town is using for Apple Fest and potentially the beach party, that is just under $9,000. That one should probably get some additions. But other than that, the rest of them look like they're all in really healthy shape, so.
Yeah.
I assume, it seems like the beach party, for the 4th of July takes funding out of that account, and Apple Fest will too, and that could knock that account down fairly low. It didn't get Another $10,000 addition or something.
Well, what if,
The other one that you need to, that you just to be, just so you have all the information, the admin account is how we pay Reagan too.
Yeah.
And you also can pay other town right now, it's not really, I'm not sure that's been fully fleshed out. Maybe Kent can flesh that out, but it is possible that you can defer portions of the assessor's costs and portions of my costs onto that admin account and take it out of the general fund if we were so approved. So if you can justify that, you say that 5% of my time is dealing with the TIF and the finances of the TIF and paying bills that are related to the TIF, you could say that, 5% of the manager's salary, we can take off the general fund and put it in the TIF. You can do the same thing with the assessor. You could say that the assessor has to calculate the TIF value separately from all the other values in town, and that she has to administer certain things and fill out certain forms for the state, and you could put a certain amount of the assessor's costs into the admin budget. So that one is kind of flexible, and I think Kent probably has talked about this on the Eco Devo committee with Reagan. At least I think you have, Ken. I don't want to put any words in your mouth, but
we have, and we don't need any special language to do that in our TIF. It's just a matter of state policy.
correct. You just need to budget for it. That's all.
Does the same apply to a portion of the fire department budget?
The fire department is a separate. I would defer to Reagan on this, but my understanding is that the fire costs are considered a separate program under the TIF law, and that you need town authorization to use.
So that would require a language change.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. So that might, what I'm hearing you say is that might actually be a reason to be a little more generous with the professional admin category. Because using TIF money to pay for a portion of the assessor's costs and the town manager's costs, we get a bigger bang for the buck. Rather than using general fund money to do that. So we're trying to allocate $135,380. And I guess I'll throw something out there. Maybe you guys can think about this and we can come back to it.
I'll throw out what I had jotted down
Yeah,
and
what
see
you
if
got?
you're the same.
Go ahead.
10,000 for events,
Okay.
25,380 for admin. And then the 100,000 into the streets.
Say it to me one more time. 10,000 for events?
Yep. And then $25,380 into admin,
Okay,
just taking the odd change off there.
yeah,
And then 100,000 into the streets that we'd be able to bank for sidewalks.
for
The
a
main-
sidewalk project,
Yeah.
that was coming.
So that's
Yeah.
what I was throwing out there, but what did you? What
No,
was your napkin?
I'm agreeable to that.
Put any money into.
Say it
What's
again.
that?
What's the two categories you didn't put?
Well, these are the ones we've traditionally used in the past.
Exactly.
We don't necessarily have to. They all have very healthy balances. There's a category called property rehabilitation with a balance of $72,000.
Mhm.
There's a property called parking facility, a category called parking facilities with a balance of $55,000. We'll be adding to the advertising category, which currently has a balance of $28,000, and we'd be adding 25. The streetscape account currently has $200,000 in it, and Chris's proposal would be to add 100. Right, and there is an ongoing expense to the streetscape account of $41,000.
Yeah.
Townwide events currently has a balance of 13,000. And Chris's suggestion would add 10 more.
Well, look at the ending balance in the right-hand column, because that takes out the,
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. I stand corrected. The current balance in the townwide events is $8,900 because there was a $4,200 expenditure for Apple Fest and something else, beach party, I think. The next category is called economic plan, and it stands at a balance of $70,000. There's another category called revolving loan fund. And it stands at a balance of $67,000. Both of those last two categories have been inactive this year. And so the last category is professional admin.
And that's where I think that the money for the assessor and the town manager would go, right?
Yes.
Admin.
And so the current balance for admin is 62 minus 7,600. What's that? It's like gonna be like $5,500, $55,000.
There's still a lot of money in that account.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Krista's proposal would add 25,300 to that account. So, Chris, if I'm understanding you properly, we would be allocating $10,000 to the events account.
Yeah.
Bringing the balance to like
18, well, almost 19.
almost 19.
That-
We'd be adding 25,380.70 to the admin account, professional / admin account, bringing its balance to 55 plus 25, it's gonna be $70,000-ish. And then $100,000 would go to the streetscape account, bringing its balance to $259,513.26. And of course, we already know the town is committed to a regular expense of $41,000 being withdrawn from that account each year just to pay the debt service on the existing sidewalk projects that we've already done. So we know that.
But just to clarify, I think you added that 25,380 to what, advertising and marketing,
Oh, I didn't
but it's
do that.
professional and admin, sorry. Correct?
No, that is correct. Advertising and marketing would be not funded this year.
Yeah. Which,
If I said that incorrectly, forgive me.
Yeah.
It,
and no,
the
nothing has been
25
taken out of that recently anyway. So-
right. So just for the record, Justin, the $25,380.70 would go to the professional admin account.
I gotcha.
Okay. You need a motion on that?
Do those recommendations sound in line with what you're seeing coming up, Justin?
I think so. I think the big thing for the town coming up is gonna be the Main Street sidewalk, and I think the most that you can put aside to that, while also balancing what you've gotten back in your surveys about trails and things like that. But I think that there's room in maybe some of those other categories that if you wanted to get started, you could ask the town to move that money to do that instead. But the streetscapes project, that's gonna be it's gonna be a big borrowing for the town, and the more that you can kind of put away ahead of time is better, I think, for the community.
Need a motion.
Do we need a motion for that?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so I make a motion that we accept Chris's proposal.
I wrote it down, so it's good.
Oh, so you're seconding it?
Yeah.
You're seconding.
You got a second right here.
Okay, so Chris made a motion.
Ken made a
Ken made a
motion. Ken made a motion.
To approve the fiscal year 23 TIF budget, and Joe seconded it. So, all those in favor? Thank you. You want this back, Mary? No.
Thank you for saving us, Mary.
You would have had to lean our head on, or turn the computer on its side, so,
Silence.
yes.
Next is to do the culture creation portion of the fiscal year 24 municipal budget, which involves Compton Hall, and the library, and recreation.
So who would you like to start with? Pick somebody, Doug.
Well, we'll start at the top of the list with parks and
Okay.
recreation, so I think that makes sense. I wish that Joe was here that we could follow up with that.
I have some concerns about our budget. To begin with, budget was never, the commission was never, that didn't meet in December for the meeting because day of the meeting, I was rushing my husband to the emergency room, so we had to cancel the appointment. I tried several times after that to set up appointments to meet because I knew we had to do the budget, but Joe was never available. So we never met. Budget was never discussed. Correct, commission at all. So it was, suddenly I found out in January, he had turned it in already. And I just got a hold of it, looked at it. And my concern is when speaking with Lisa, who had turned in her budget or met with Lori to talk about her budget, had added money because the minimum wage went up and everything. And the cost of things went up. But when I looked at our budget, that's in your packet. I'm assuming it's in the packet. Nothing changed except for wages, which included his increase in pay and I guess an allotment for the wages. But when Lisa couldn't be here, I was hoping she'd come in on Zoom, but 5 kids is kind of hard. She's concerned about whether there's enough in there. And then there was no increase for things like electricity for this building, electricity for that building, because that comes out of that budget. Paper goods for the sanitation. I didn't see anything for that. I did find where there was shirts because she talked about uniforms. So they never met to meld the two together. And we were never consulted about, and we never voted. Because usually we consult, we do it together as what we're directed to do by the board. So I don't know where you want to go with it. I mean, if you're going to vote it in.
It appears they did increase your electricity budget by 14%. And they increased your supplies budget by 40%.
Okay, well, first when I opened his budget there.
And the
Unless-
wages, just so I don't mean to interrupt anybody, but the wages, just so you know, the reason that the part-time wages are eliminated and put into seasonal, it's an accounting thing. Mark is again correcting us just because he's an accountant. Those are not considered part-time wages. They're all considered seasonal wages. So if you look at the two totals added together, it's still quite a bit more than what was in there last year. It's like a 14 or 16% increase. If you were to add those two lines together, it was 56 something last year, and this year it's 70 something. So there is accounting in there for the minimum wage increase and the general town-wide increase that we've applied to certain employees in the past. That's certainly up to you because they're not unionized, but in the past, we've applied the same union increases to certain non-union employees.
All right, so maybe I'm looking at a different budget than what he sent me. Because when I look at the budget, what he sent me, he has wages, he had the 22 budget, which was 75,203, and the 2023 was at 8678. And then facilities for 2022 had 8750. He changed it to 4750. And then when I go down his list, nothing's changed till you get down to North Monmouth Beach, where it was 3,800 and he has $380, and then the total being 116,402. So
Yeah, I don't think you're looking at.
I don't think you're looking
you must
at the
have,
right report.
you did not send me the right report even. Okay, well, that's why I'm even more so confused. Because this is what he told me the budget was. This is the problem when you have a director that can't always have the meeting. So I didn't even see this, so I take all that back.
Yeah.
The
So,
shocking part of it for me was when we went in 2022 from 56,761 for a budget to 2024, the proposed budget is 126,247.
Well,
And I know there was a lot of things that happened between 22, because 23, it went up significantly. And this proposal is 8.5% from last year to this year, but it's gone 60% in 2 years, roughly.
and I think the biggest thing is wages. I mean, that's.
yeah, a good part of that
Yeah.
is because when the budget was done, minimum wage went up.
Yeah,
And then as you get more of the experience, so this year for guards, last year, it was low enough because she had a lot of first year guards, so most of them, way the pay scale is, they're probably still at the same wage, but then you've got the others that bump up as they go along. And I don't know what I have no idea what her salary is, but I know the cost of other things have gone up dramatically.
And I think, one of the big things there is electricity
Yeah.
for here, because that's
Right.
counting, but I think,
Electric, sewer.
what I'd like to see is if we're paying for electricity in this building and things to use it, so, and that's why I'm trying to wish Joe was here to tell us, what type of programs he's.
Okay,
starting to
well,
work
yeah, we
on.
have a couple of things in the fire, so to speak, going right now. I'm waiting to hear back on something. We've got a couple of people that are interested in doing things, so it's almost like when if we're involved in soccer season and basketball season, it kind of gets pushed to the side.
Well, that's why there needs to be, programs that don't just focus on,
Right, which is what,
rec programs, because there's a whole lot more adults in this town that might want to do stuff.
well, that's what we're trying to do. We held an open house. We had one person show up. We would try and get people for, what kind of things do you want to see and do and need. So it's getting the word out there. I mean, we do now have our own Facebook page, but we're trying to get a hold of other people because not everybody uses Facebook. So we're trying to reach out to the senior citizens. We have a couple of things in mind, but you have to remember what we've worked. Again, it's like the sanitation. I've not had a full board in 8 years. I'm still down one person. And we just got another person on board. So our December meeting, I was the only one there. So when we January was COVID and nobody was assigned. So I'm still down a person. We have to have 3 in order to do anything. So when you only have 4, it's a little hard. But that being said, we do have some other things planned. It's just getting them. We're meeting in our next meeting is March 12th. And we're hoping to have a couple of fundraiser type things or just things to get people in. We do have some people that want to offer classes. Line dancing class was lining up. So Joe was, the commission asked him to get that started, meet with the people, ask about what kind of fee they wanted, what they needed, what we need to do, because we can set that up in there. There's somebody that wants to do a quilting class. So it's getting people,
Engaged.
word out there.
So one of the potential
Plus we got the people-
areas you might consider is Mary Beth Paquette. He came to present to us last
meeting.
two Wednesdays ago. Mary Beth is very interested in putting together an age-friendly
I
committee.
read about that, yeah.
And I think, some of the programs that I think we're hearing from constituents
Stuff we
fall
want.
in an intersection between what you guys do and what Mary Beth was talking about when she was here.
One of the things that did come to concern about that was that Joe's the only one who has access to this building to get in.
Well, if you have a program planned, then obviously either the rec director needs to give somebody information about how to get in. I mean, because,
Right.
and
We get
it
that.
needs to be available. So.
We'll get into.
So if you look at our bylaws and the ordinance, something else, it says that members of the board are entitled to have keys to the buildings that they use. In other words, technically, I should be able to have a key so I can come in this building and I can sit that, Joe came and unlocked the door and left it unlocked while he went to work. And then I came in about an hour later to have our open house type thing the day that we did that.
Sure.
And then we had just had to make sure it was locked type thing. So it was hard getting access to.
Well, now there's a pin, so there's not even a key that you need. So
Okay,
there's a
well,
pin.
that's.
And
how
now
it is
you
there.
don't have to have somebody come back and lock it back up.
So-
Just leave and make sure the door's shut.
Maybe that's why he couldn't get in the other night. He says, my key doesn't work. I said, oh, no, I never had access. But, so we'll need guidance from you guys that, if somebody's going to do a class here, does somebody from the board have to be here? Or they, can they just be, okay, Mary Jo's gonna teach line dance and give her the pin. She goes to teach her line dances, goes out the door. Or do we have to have somebody that's going to oversee it? In which case, we don't have a paid person to do that. Can we use a volunteer? You know what I'm saying? There's nothing
we've never had a building before, so there's nothing there to guide us, which is something I had talked to you guys before about, and we needed to get together. Because we want to start using the building. We've got plans to want to redo out there and make
What's
that
that?
into a
I don't
pickleball
know,
court.
Knocked on the door.
I thought so too.
but I don't see a person.
There's maybe a situation where we need to put some kind of a protocol list on the wall for when you leave this building.
Yeah,
What needs to be done, what needs to be left on for lights, what needs to be turned off for
Yeah.
lights, and so people that aren't using it all the time know what to
Yeah.
do when they leave.
exactly.
Develop something like that.
Well, let's ask the town manager to put together a special building protocol that we can put on a laminated sheet next to the door so that anyone who's leaving has something to look at in terms of understanding exactly what needs to be done.
Keeping the bathroom door open.
And
That's the only thing we had.
And I would suggest, you tell us, ask your committee to tell us what they need, and if they feel like they need to ask permission, come ask permission, we'll figure it out. You tell us what you need.
Because we are looking at, so I'll tell you right now, that we're looking at doing a pickleball tournament, which probably we're gonna move probably to April. We've already lined up about the gym. It's just gonna be, we're not gonna charge for it first. We just want to see if we can get an interest. We are looking about doing, using the basketball courts, leaving it basketball, but also setting up for pickleball. We've got some equipment that we've voted into that to some basic stuff to buy. So we had some things like that. So we are in the works. We're looking, it's been a slow process. Now, like I said, I've got 4 members now, so maybe get a little more done. And
And I
basketball
know-
season's just about over, so
Mary Beth,
I'll have to get in touch with Mary Beth.
Mary Beth is putting together a survey to have at the polls,
Yeah.
so that might be a good time, because we talked about that. How do you get it in people's hands that aren't on Facebook or don't have a computer? You do it at the polls. If you want a survey about what people are interested in,
Yeah, because we've done a couple of surveys and haven't gotten a lot of.
well, exactly, but they were on Facebook and.
Yeah. Basically, it was on a town page.
So, yeah, but if people don't have computers at home, how are they gonna do that? And a lot of elderly people don't have computers and don't get on there to see things. So you have surveys at the polls that people can pick up and do right there or take home and bring back to the town office, so I think that's a goal to get a survey together and have it ready to go for the June election.
So maybe Justin, you can answer this. So if this person comes in to teach line dancing, if we have the participants sign a waiver, is that sufficient, or does this person have to have insurance to cover teaching the class?
That is a good question. If you give me sort of a list of the activities you're trying to do, I'll run that by our town insurance company and I'll find out what they are requiring. And I can do that for you.
Okay, because that was one of our concerns. Okay, there's somebody out there.
Let's go.
Well, Mark.
I just sent Paul a message.
Yeah. Then go check it. What's going on? That's why we talked about, being able to put lights up. So, there's a lot of irons in the fire, but it's like, we don't have enough of a budget. Like, there's no extra money to pay somebody to oversee some of this stuff. So it's gonna be. But yeah, I'll get a list, Justin. We just have a few things and find out all the possibilities of.
Yeah, absolutely. Just let me know what they are and I'll forward your email right on to MMA, who's our insurance company, and they'll let me know what they require for that stuff. It's not going to be new for them. Clearly other towns are doing these things. I just don't know the answer to your question. So I'll find out.
Suppose I could ask Lonnie, but that's a little different anyway, because he goes through the why, so it's different, but. All right, so then. All right. I guess is that from?
Teenagers.
I don't know. Mark is on the prowl and Hugh's backing him up.
All right, well, I feel a little better now. So I'll have to get on his case about giving me the wrong. And see, that was the problem with not having access to it, and we never ever saw it. And the one he did finally email me, it's not the right one apparently. I apologize for,
No, that's all right.
feel a little better now. But can we advertise for another member? It's hard to get people to come forward, but we've been without a 5-member board for so long. And it really makes it hard, like, I mean, Tom Beckwith, he's been excused both times because you're allowed excuse for meetings. Because he's been ill. He had COVID in December, and then this last one, he was ill with the flu. So is there a possibility to advertise? Can we just openly advertise, and because it's an open position? Can we do it on our Facebook page, or do we have to go through the town to place?
Yep, I can do that. I just put it on my list, so I'll add it to the website and onto the Facebook page so
I want to
that,
get some young blood in there that have kids.
yeah, sure.
All right, well, then that's good.
And talk to Mary Beth.
Yes.
You'll find an ally in Mary Beth. She
Yeah,
will
well, when I
totally
read-
be
when I
interested.
read- I always read through the packet and everything beforehand, and so that says, maybe we should be talking to each other. because
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what we're looking for. We want to start, we do a lot of stuff for the younger kids, but we want to get to older, like retirees like myself and, that have the time and sitting on their hands that help we do. We want to have a game night. We have a movie night for outdoor movie night set up throughout there. Out on the lawn type thing. I have a big projector.
You need a public performance for that.
Yeah, we were gonna come talk to you.
I would love to be talking to her.
Figure that we have, I mean, 'cause we're not. We're not to pay a fee. If we.
I don't know. You went around this end of the building, I went around that end of the building, the kid ran, looked like a kid across the front lawn, headed down Academy Street, and he disappeared. I went into the fairgrounds, Hugh went into the school, so he's ditched somewhere and.
Somebody.
Teenagers.
We go set with the Parks and Rec.
Well,
It's some, yeah, I'm done with what I have.
you were gonna talk about the library.
Yes.
Yes.
I hope you all have it in front of you. I had to blow mine out because I
We do.
couldn't read it. It was so little. Basically, part-time wages went up. Because, I'm having, I've been working with the high school librarian, but she's had a number of issues, so she hasn't been able to come in as much as she wanted to. Way to go, Julie. And, so that went up so that I think it's mainly seasonal help that I need to, the summer when we're busier. My full-time line, the first line, went up 8% for COLA. That's what we were advised to increase it. The next line, training and development, I dropped because I think that's a holdover from the help I got when I was getting my master's. And we don't really go to many training programs. We go to a couple, but they're fairly low in price. The other change was water. And let's see, was there one more? I think I also increased the telephone line, but all that's gonna change with the voice over internet, so I'm not sure exactly. So that's happening sooner rather than later, I think. But this is based on the old. You folks have questions or?
Can we, Justin, can we talk about a category, the telephone category and the voice over internet, the VoIP stuff? What's going on there?
Yes, absolutely. So we're switching from consolidated where we can to a voice over IP. So we have an integrated phone system. We're in the works of doing that. It should save us a little bit of money. What we're finding is that some of these lines have to stay because, for example, like Compton Hall has a elevator and those can't be on VoIP is my understanding. They have to be copper lines so that, if the internet or the power's out, they can still call if there's an emergency or something like that. So some of the lines have to stay and certain ones just aren't feasible to switch because we just don't have adequate lines run in, like in Public Works, for example, there's a line at the far end of the garage that we're probably just going to end up getting rid of, but it's we'd have to run internet cable across the whole length of the garage to do it, and it just doesn't make any sense when we asked Tom about whether he ever uses the phone, and it doesn't look like it's used very much to have it be worthwhile keeping. So some of the lines we'll have to keep as copper lines, but generally we're trying to make it so that there's one singular phone system that you can call and we can easily transfer people, and their voicemails will show up as emails, things like that. So, you know, police chief, myself, Lori, some of the others that routinely work from home on snow days and weekends and whenever anybody else needs to get hold of us, that we can get all our messages, whether they're on the town phone system or their personal or work cell phones. So we're working towards that with our IT vendor. This was part of our whole moving to a sort of a consolidated IT vendor that can provide all of our services so that when something goes wrong, we have one person to call and not 6. Does that answer your question? Okay. But right now, because we don't know exactly how all those fee structures are going to differ based on the number of lines that we have, we've kind of left everything as is, or as we would expect it to be moving in next year if we weren't doing this project. We think it's going to happen quickly, but we're not sure. We're not completely aware of our savings at this point. We're kind of still finding phones that we weren't sure existed, things like that, just lines that are hanging out there. I mean, it's not big money, but when you have sort of these inactive lines that have been there for 10 years and nobody really knows what they're for, we're really trying to dig into, like, do we, you know, we're paying $6 a month for something. Does anybody know what it is? And then sometimes you find out that it actually belongs to something. We just didn't have it listed out properly. For example, the other day we called a phone number at Cumston Hall. We didn't know what it was, and it ended up being the call box in the elevator. But we didn't know what the phone number was. It just said, this is the elevator phone. And oh, okay.
Gotta kind of have
But it wasn't, but it wasn't written down anywhere like what that number was. So we see it on the bill and it's, what is this? So we're finding some of those. So I don't have a good grasp on how many are going to exist and not exist when we're done. So we've left the phone lines kind of as they are at this point.
Pretty good with thought and very much. Thank you, Julie.
On to Cumston Hall.
Dennis.
Hello, friends. I know you've had a long meeting, so I'll try to be brief, but I wanted to take this opportunity maybe to report out a little bit about Cumston Hall this past year. And if you have any questions with this year's budget, I can field those as well. Does that sound okay?
Yes, good.
Okay. So Cumston Hall had a very nice year last year. There were 18 different unique users of Cumston Hall all of last year, which included things as diverse as RSU2 functions, all the way to theater productions, improv productions, as well as birthday parties and baby showers. With rentals and lease agreements, Cumston Hall made more money last year than it has in its history. And part of that is just letting people know that Cumston Hall is available for rental as well. We have the website up and running. We have the calendar, which also syncs all of the library and opera hall, basically all building events all in one place. So for the most part, I feel like Cumston Hall is operating where it should be. I also want to point out that when the select board approved alcohol service at Cumston Hall, it really did add value to our December events. We watched each successive event, I should say, that offered alcohol service grew in attendance. And we were able to use in that time 2 separate vendors, and we did so successfully and relatively without incident. I feel like moving forward, this is something else that will be a benefit to Cumston Hall as well. Oh, did you want to answer? I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Yeah, did you mean the sky didn't fall?
No.
In fact, it stayed exactly where it was, and we were able to manage it, and people were very excited about it. In fact, a couple people were very, very like, wow, what a cool thing to have in town. So thank you to the select board for doing that. But yes, sky's still intact. Overall, we're continuing to market Cumston right now. At the beginning, I give you another, just a quick sort of idea of how the volume is going. The Theater at Monmouth lease ended on the 24th of September. And from the 24th of September to the end of last year was 15 weeks. And in those 15 weeks, Cumston Hall had an event in 13 of those weeks. So, we're just continuing to do more, advertising and letting people know using Facebook. Cumston Hall has a Facebook page, which I manage. And overall, we're growing our event base, we're growing our user base, and that's a good thing. The last thing I'll say is that coming up in November of this year, we have a wedding. And we're very excited about the Cumston Hall wedding, the Baker Butterfield wedding this year in November.
Dennis, can you give us an idea of the size of your revenue growth?
I can't. I apologize. I only know what we did in 2022. In 2021, because the building was still partially closed, I don't think that was a rightful comparison. Obviously, with 2020, I don't know, and I have no record before I started, so I apologize. I can't give you that. I know we made more money last year than this year, and I know that the only record I had was somewhere back in 2017, which I found in the office, but it was minimal.
Are we talking 5 figures?
In difference, or would you like an amount for last year?
An amount, yeah.
Sure. Cumston Hall made $15,303 in rentals and lease agreements last year.
Okay.
I don't know why it was such a weird number, but that's what I have here.
And it's in our printout here, the year to date
Yes,
says
sir.
you spent $167 for heat. You guys rubbing sticks together?
Yes, I noticed that in the packet. I don't know if I can share my screen, but I have the most recent numbers that I can either. I don't know how I can do it, but anyway, that line is incorrect. I think mostly that's just for budget for next year, but those numbers are not the most recent expenditure report. So I apologize for that. Yes, I saw that too. Jeez, that's right. Yes, it's very cold always at Cumston, but yes, that is correct.
What's going on with your ground maintenance where you've bumped up? Is this like landscaping stuff in the yard that's going on, or what is included in the grounds maintenance?
Absolutely. So the grounds maintenance includes mulch, which I get in the spring and have put out front. The ground maintenance is also for flowers that we put out front. And we're looking to offset that with can and bottle revenue. I had a sort of deal worked out with the folks downtown at the general store, but then they stopped doing the account. And so we're talking to the new folks in Winthrop that run it, but that includes that. And then any other, sometimes there are like specialty things that we need out there. Tim is going to do some removal of some items this year. So just bumping it up that way, it's a more accurate figure.
Yep. And the supplies, your last item that jumped significantly?
Absolutely. That's probably the one that stands out the most. It's such a big jump. When I took over at Cumston, there was no supply budget. And by that, I mean, I didn't have, like, I couldn't buy a hammer. Yeah, it's like I didn't have a budget line for that. I also couldn't buy, for example, last year I purchased a holder for the folding chairs. Otherwise, they just get laid up against. And I had to take that from the repair of the building budget because I didn't have a supply budget. What I found this year was that $2,000 was good. It was good for like consumables and things like that. But we upped it this year because it's more reflective of some of the, I think, things that I'm going to need moving forward.
Buddy had about 20 hammers in the basement, if I remember right. So if you're looking for one, the basement
That's
would be a
right.
good place to look.
Yes. Oh, come down to the basement sometime. I can, it would be a
clean.
magic wonderland of stuff down there. Yes. But that also includes things like if I needed, let's say, for example, any sort of, think about building supplies. So like, here's one for you, wet floor signs. If I needed a wet floor sign, I didn't have a budget line to pull that out of. If I needed to get something at Audette's, for example, that maybe was a quick repair, I didn't have a line for that. And the 2000 was new last year, and that I didn't feel like was enough. So that's why.
Is there still cases of incandescent light bulbs in the basement? I think Buddy was worried they were never going to be available again, and he bought a lifetime supply.
I haven't purchased light bulbs in 3 years. And that's the truth. Yes, we have a surplus, a stock of them. So that's been good. I would say things like fasteners, things like that, screws and things like that. But I'll give you an example of stuff that I'm going to purchase. I need paint. And luckily we go to a place, a vendor that has a very accurate paint matching thing. But when you're talking about that paint, it's expensive. So that would come out of my supply budget. And those are like little ideas. So the paint, unfortunately, most of the paint is no good anymore. So we're finding we've had to do that. So just another example of those supplies.
Wearing my Compton Hall trustee hat, I would say that increasing the use of the building will increase your consumable line. So, and we are seeing a steady increase. So I'm happy to have people come in and use the building. So acknowledging that, knowing that it does increase our supplies and maintenance and care. So
that was, in fact, Kristen, that's a great point. What I've noticed, and this is my third budget at Compton Hall. And I'm starting, like the first year was just like, okay, let's just sort of get through and extrapolate what we need. Last year, I understood a little bit more, and then we had that carryover issue. So that was a little bit of sorting that out. This year is what I would call the last year of maybe the traditional way that the Compton Hall budget gets done. And I mean by, knowing with the increases in services this year, our elevator service goes up, all of those vendors that have to drive to Compton Hall, that stuff has gone up. But one thing that I've noticed is everything is on a sliding scale. So it's exactly right. You increase that traffic, you have more stuff. The one thing I will note is, since we replaced the theater stage lights, I am interested to see what kind of numbers our electricity usage will look like for last year. And I'm looking forward to seeing that data. It's not going to be available. I don't have it yet to look back and see against other years. But I anticipate seeing a reduction in our electricity bill through that. Which I don't think will be affected by the heat pump we put in the annex.
Just to prepare you, your usage will probably drop significantly. Price will stay the same.
Yeah. Oh, all right. Exactly. Yes, that's right. And we talk about energy. Energy is a big thing at Compton, and as you know that. And so we're always looking for ways of being more efficient.
Dennis, I got a hard question for you.
Okay. Yes, sir.
And just so you know, Julie is in the room.
Oh boy, yes, ma'am.
Her telephone budget is $500 for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Your telephone budget is $6,800.
That is correct.
What's the difference?
Sure, absolutely. We pay $5,400 a year for the internet that is Cumston Hall wide. So when we added that last year through and that's actually luckily that $5,400 is contracted for 5 years, so that shouldn't change. The other $1,400 is for the fire panel, phone connection, as well as the elevator.
So essentially you're saying Julie's getting a free ride on internet.
Well, because she gets a.
Oh,
No,
no.
her
She
internet's
has,
free.
Oh, yeah.
she has
Yeah.
free internet because it's a program that the library has through.
From the
the
state, it's
Yeah.
part of the Maine
Yes.
School and Library Network, so she gets
Yes.
high-speed internet for free on the
Yes.
state's dime.
Yes, on the
Free.
state's dime. You're not paying
Yes.
for it here in town, you're paying for it in your state taxes. It all
Yes,
comes from
and that was-
I'm not sure how they come by that.
Yeah.
It's free.
No,
There's no such
whatever
thing as.
works. We just know that there's
Exactly.
plenty of internet at Cumston Hall. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So
I used to work there back in my college days. It's actually the largest internet connection north of Boston is in Neville Hall and Orono.
Yeah.
And from there, it feeds out to every school and library in the state.
Wow. Wow.
Very cool.
And the library made a point to be part of that, study from your car. So
Yeah.
we got on the map and everything because people were looking for places to access.
Is this the fiber connection? Is it a fiber connection?
It's a T3. so it's-
Both of them, yeah.
Well,
Thank
maybe
you,
we should,
Dennis.
hey, maybe we should shift some of the Cumston Hall internet stuff to the library and have them run the Wi-Fi.
That was the other.
Well,
whole
that
thing,
was the
'cause-
impetus for the whole thing. That would be illegal against the.
Yes.
Well,
So can't stop. Stop talking,
Dennis,
Ken.
Dennis,
Okay.
we don't want to say the word illegal. We'll just say statutorily non-compliant.
However you prefer it. Senator, yes, absolutely.
Dennis, you'll sign that contract, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes. No, it's great because now we have internet in the hall, which was, that was always nice to have, so.
Exactly.
So
Upstairs,
Mark, to
upstairs in
answer
the
your
alcohol.
question, as of February 9th, he's used about 8,700. I looked it up while he was talking, about $8,700 worth of fuel. But we have another 5,000 in Fabian bills in your warrant that's in front of you tonight, and Cumston uses a lot. They're usually $1,500 or more per fill up. So it could be, you could add another 15 or 2,000 on there any month during the winter. It's
Yeah.
so just to give you an idea. So we're probably pretty close on track to where we should be.
Thank you, Dennis.
Absolutely, and thank you all very much. I love being at Cumston Hall and working down there, and I appreciate your support and hope to see you at an event.
Yeah, hey, I went to the pirate thing this past weekend.
Yes, Pirates Past Noon Kids.
It was refreshing to see every seat filled in that in Cumston.
Yeah, were you there on Saturday or Sunday? Sunday.
Sunday.
Yeah, it was packed on Sunday. You know, this weekend was great at Cumston Hall. Just to give you a sense, I know we're getting late, but on Saturday, I made a post about this. It was Super Saturday, so the library was open. It had the Friends of Cumston Library book sale. There was a show going on Saturday, and then on Sunday there was a class. My improv class meets there, and then also that sold out show. It was crazy. So good things there.
It's been a long time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm glad to see it. All right. Thank you all very much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Dennis.
Thank you.
Indeed. Absolutely.
On to our number, we got approved, we just reviewed.
Yeah.
We have one more number 20.
Okay, I'm unmuted here, right? Yes, you can hear me. Okay, let's see. Okay, so Blue Rock Earthworks, materials transport for the transfer station, $2,564. Columbia Classic Cars, this is repairs for a 2021 Dodge Charger, $1,057.45. Fabian Oil, $4,558 for heating fuel. Grimmel Industries demo removal at the transfer station, $3,300.10. La Rochelle Consulting, Economic Development Consultant, $1,700. Lawson Products, plow and sander hydraulic fittings, public works equipment, $1,643. LP Poirier and Sons, this is the final expenditures and change orders to the Beach Road North Main and Maple Sidewalk project, $63,322.38. Maine Municipal Association annual membership, $5,416. Maine Waste to Energy tipping fees from January for the month of January, $5,624. Maine PERS retirement of certain town employees, $5,637. Maine Municipal Employees Health Insurance Trust, $18,747. New England Salt Company, salt for the roads, $13,974. Nickerson and O'Day, Monmouth Academy, building renovations, expenditures approved by the building committee of $45,810. Wilson Pond culvert replacement. This is for the new Wilson Pond project, not the old one. This is for the new culvert that's collapsing. This is the engineering work for the upcoming project if the town approves it, but this is to get the engineering far enough so that we can apply for a stream water crossing grant from Maine DEP, $5,317. RSU number 2, $486,060. State of Maine Bureau of Motor Vehicles, $16,262. And State of Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, $10,261. For a grand total of $699,944.67.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion, we approve fiscal year 22-23 warrant number 17.
Second that.
Kent's made a motion, and Chris has seconded to approve warrant number 17 for fiscal year 22-23. All those in favor? Thank you.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Aye.
Did we continue an executive meeting? What happened? What, did you get Ted sent you a document with
Yes,
what we have,
he replied.
okay.
We were hoping that would happen. The executive meeting would happen
Right.
tonight. Justin, is it possible that we could have an executive session for our next meeting?
Yes, absolutely. I'll add it.
Okay.
I hope you all stay safe tomorrow. We're not getting the same snow down here, but I'll find it when I come back on Friday.
Safe travels.
Are you enjoying Boston?
Yes, we had a good time. We went to the Museum of Science today. The kids are a little worn out. They woke up too early this morning. Tomorrow's the aquarium and a few other things. So we'll see how it goes. They get tired after a while, and I get tired. It's 5 kids. It's hard to keep them all going where you need them to go. But it's fun.
Have fun.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Enjoy.
Have a good night.
Night. Need a motion to.
Yeah, did you adjourn yet? Did you adjourn?
No.
Well, I made a motion.
Yeah.
I'll second.
There's been motions. Ken seconded it. All those in favor?
We're adjourned.
All right. Good night.
Thank you.